Hola, mi gente. First thing on the agenda. First of all, welcome to On the Block with Jen. If you're here for the first time, where you been, baby? You gonna like it here. Get comfy, okay? Hit that like and subscribe on your way in. If you are a returning guest, hey, baby. How you doing? You miss me? I miss you too. All right, guys. So first order of business. We lost the Queen Mother, Assata Shakur, yesterday, okay? And if you don't know who Assata Shakur is, I don't care what your age is, you are dismissed, okay? Until you know better. All right. Sada Shakur, we lost her. You guys know. Committed a couple crimes, maybe, kind of, sort of, in this country, and then escaped jail and went to Cuba. Okay. FBI was trying to get her back for many, many years, and Cuba said, no, eat me. So she lived a free woman in Cuba, and we lost her yesterday. Rest in peace to the Queen Mother. Once again, Assata Shakur. Thank you for your service. I know we think about the military when we say that, but we also have to say that about our revolutionaries. Do we not, ladies and gentlemen? Also, the Black and Puerto Rican connection has been forever, okay? Sada Shakur complimented Lolita Lebron, Puerto Rican nationalist. If you don't know who Lolita Lebron is, you're also dismissed, okay? You guys think the first time people ran up in the Capitol was January 6th. No. The crazy Puerto Ricans did it, okay? Led by a woman, Puerto Rican woman, Lolita Lebron. So Assata Shakur, just so you know, complimented and admired Lolita Lebron. So there's some history for you, okay? For all you people that think there's a divide in our community, that black and brown love has been strong and long for a long time. So with that said, the Puerto Ricans were on with this week. If you've been under a rock, Bad Bunny broke the internet, okay? Literally broke the internet. The most viewed Amazon concert ever in history. Okay? His Debía Tirar Más Fotos on Amazon was live. They ran it 24 hours back to back to back. I thought that was amazing. I caught it like 3 or 4 times. I just left the TV on at some points because we have to support, right? When any of us is doing anything, people of color, because it's hard for us to get our projects greenlit. Right? Because they say, well, ain't nobody gonna watch that. Well, we watched the out of it globally. So salute to Bad Bunny, the Puerto Rican brethren. And he's going on a worldwide tour. It's interesting when people are like, I never heard of him. Well, the world heard of him. He's going to Istanbul, Japan, Australia, you name it, he's out there. So if you don't know who Bad Bunny is, you're dismissed as well till you do your homework. All right, so with that said, I'd love for my co-host to introduce himself. We had a gay old time out here, didn't we, No Saint?
Yes, we did. Hello, everybody. We're back. We did a show last Wednesday, and then we ended up missing Friday. We're back this Friday, though, and we're ready to go. We got a lot of topics. We have hopefully some old friends come up here again, and like we did the last show. And let's have this discussion.
Absolutely. So I see George Cook backstage. George, we were worried about you, brethren. We were get on up here. Get on up here. Welcome, George Cook. How are you, Georgie?
Hello, love. How are you doing? And hello, No Saint. Good to see you, man. I told Jen that considering everything that's going on in the world right now, you and I can find something to argue about. There'll at least be one thing we can argue about tonight. So we'll.
I think so.
Yeah. So.
Like old times.
Yeah, just like old times. But it's great, to be back. Jen, I watched some of the recurrent when you first came back, and you and No Saint were talking about some of the things that people are doing now that you were doing 2 years ago. And I'm going to tell you this, they still have not got to where you left off. No, not to that point where I'm talking about the kind of topics. Do you still have your bell? The little bell, all that kind of stuff that we would talk about. And I remember saying at the time to Haran, you and Lily, I said, if you're right now, the way things are, if you're a person of color and you want to get a mic, you've got like a lot of latitude, and you're seeing it across the political spectrum. Like on Officer Tatum, Candace Owens, I know those are people on the right, but you're seeing it, and I think it's a great thing. And so all kind of diversity of opinion and everything, and especially over the past week with or the past couple of weeks with Charlie Kirk's passing, it's highlighted more than ever. Even though, like on this show, it got heated, it got confrontational, but at the end of the day, No Saint and I walked away, respected each other. We were, I like No Saint, and hopefully, and so anyway, it, it really highlighted we got some big problems in this country with I know we'll get into all that, but still. Anyway, I'll shut up and let you take over the show here, Jen. But it's good to be back.
Well, George, mute your mic whenever you're not speaking, because we got technical difficulties, so I could figure those out. First of all, welcome back, sir. It is good to see you and good to see you in good health. We speak about you all the time. We speak about the old crew. So, I reached out the first time, and I was like, where's George? And No Saint and I mention you often. So seriously, honestly, sincerely, good to see you back. And everybody, the block is always welcome up here. I dropped the link earlier in the chat. If you need it, again, let me know. Hit that like and subscribe. You guys know you can buy the girl a smoothie. Cash App on the block with Janet is floating on the bottom, but really, really happy we're here together. And I want to jump right into it, because why let the people wait? Speaking of Charlie Kirk, as you guys know, okay, y'all are not gonna like me tonight, but that's good, because it gets the people going, right? It gets the blood pumping. Some of you guys don't work out. I'll get the blood pumping for you, okay, tonight. So I went from being a very casual watcher of Charlie Kirk to a fan. I'm a fan now, No Saint. And I play with No Saint a lot. I tell him that, pause. I play around with No Saint, and I tell him that, I'm going to end up with a MAGA hat eventually. I'm sorry. Now that the man is dead, the very young man, okay? Anyone who's the age of someone that could be my child, to me, he's a young, you know what I'm saying? He's a kid to me, right? Unfortunately, taken off the planet very, very early. But I got to say, I became, from a casual, like, oh, I like how this guy debates, to it's like I'm an avid watcher now. I gotta say, I just find myself very much entertained and intrigued by his style of debating, right? And I could do the cliche, well, I didn't agree with everything he said. Here's the thing. His opinions were his opinions, right? And they didn't depend on whether I agree or not. It doesn't matter whether I agree or not. I think we're too hell-bent on whether or not we agree with each other versus just letting people have their opinions and letting those opinions stand. Now, we get into the sound bites and people are like, he's racist. And it's like, people are parroting each other, right? And I don't think, what's the saying that's popular online? Observing patterns of different demographics is not racism to me. It wasn't racism to him. It's not racism to me. He wasn't calling for the harm of anyone. He wasn't calling for the violence towards anyone. He wasn't calling for the assassinations of anyone. So when people say, well, hate speech, well, we've all done that. Let's pull up our text messages and let's tap everybody's phones. I think we've all done a little bit of that around here. Right? So, you guys saw he had the funeral. Now, the funeral I did not like. I didn't like it at all. People likened it to a WWE entrance where the wrestlers come in. You guys know Trump is awkward as AF. Okay? And Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow, was trying to get, that moment, that somber moment. But, Trump is not that guy. He's the performer all the time. So it was awkward. I thought the fireworks were awkward. I felt even more sympathy for Charlie Kirk, believe it or not, because I was like, this is kind of a circus. And he was so reserved, right? I would think conservative in both senses. And I was just like, this is kind of a circus. And I felt like he deserved more respect, right, than the spectacle. But again, just my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to love it. You don't, whatever. But I do feel like a lot of people said, and you guys know I'm not, a staunch anything, but I do feel like a lot of people said, it is a shame that he was taken off the planet so soon, because I think he had a bright future. He was also a realist. I mean, if you watch his interview with Bill Maher, he says, I don't agree with everything Trump says. And then he went on to explain what he didn't agree with. And that to me is commendable because he wasn't a fanboy. A fanboy would agree with everything. Okay? And I do think he had presidential potential. And I do think that his mind would have changed it even more as he got older and wiser. But we'll never know now, right? Unfortunately. So yeah, sorry, y'all can get mad and kick rocks, but I went from a casual, watcher to like, no, I really like this kid. It's a shame. It's a shame. But I'll land the plane there before we continue on with what's going on with MAGA, and just raise your hand. Let me know who wants to talk first. I will mute my mic now. No saying, I know you're like, she's gonna get her hat soon.
Yeah, welcome back, George. Yeah, and I definitely missed you. And yeah, glad to see you back. That's all I can say. Yeah, I didn't listen. I didn't watch him a lot. I know more about him now than I did before this all happened, which is kind of ironic because that's what a lot of people say is going to happen, or people going to, look at his videos and see what he was all about. So in martyrism, if you want to call it that, the message gets bigger. But there was nothing he said that deserved. First of all, nothing he could say that would ever deserve to be, assassinated. But I will say this this bothers me when other people say it, so I'm gonna have to bring it up for him. And because I've heard people, when other tragedies of, like, so let's say the shootings at schools and things like these things, or the one in Vegas and stuff like that, and you'll hear people say like, well, Second Amendment, da 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 da. Well, he said that some deaths are worth this protection of the second. It's a fair sacrifice. And I always would tell people, what if, and it would be different because I'd say, well, what if it was your kid in the school getting shot? Would you still feel that way? And so when I heard he said that, I was just thinking to myself, I wasn't happy he was killed, but I don't like when people say that because it can be you. And I know, Jen, we talked about this and you kind of said you think he would have stood by it. We'll never know. That's something we can't know. But yeah, I when people say things like that, I always say, well, I don't agree because I wouldn't want it to happen to me. I wouldn't want it to happen to my kids. I'm not saying take everybody's guns away. That's not what I'm saying. But just to protect the Second Amendment wide open like it is at all costs. Now, it might have not saved his life, even if there were protections, right? If someone wants to get you, the only, like a guy I see here says, the only thing stopping me from killing you is me. Because, if I want to get you, you're not going to know it, right? So it's complicated, but that's the only thing. That's the only thing I disagreed with him. I was like, that's not really, when it's when you're saying sacrifice of other, and you're not thinking it's you're thinking it's other people. And I'm like, that's kind of, but that was the only thing. But other than that, I mean, no, to me, he is the kind of person you want, even though with a lot of different views, he's the kind of person you want because he's engaging, and we need more engaging in this country. It's kind of the problem right now is everybody's got their own little set of facts, and everybody's got their own little watching this, and they hear the same opinion over and over again instead of sitting down, and everybody's on the internet arguing instead of getting together. And when you get together, you'll find is that you can have a discussion without getting upset because it's another person in front of you. It's not just somebody behind a keyboard. No, I'll let George go ahead. Go ahead, George.
Okay, thank you. No Saint, yeah. I'm like you. I didn't really follow him or anything like that. When I will say I was suspicious of him because, and it doesn't matter if it's on the left or the right or in the music business, when people seem to come out of nowhere, and it's almost like they're planted. I was kind of like, let me watch this guy, let's see what happens over time. But anyway, probably, that's just me being prone to conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff. But, when he made the comment about the Second Amendment, I understood what he was trying to say. And I generally agree with the philosophical premise, but at the same time, Saint, you posed the same question to me. Now, I would have to say to you, I hope I would stand by the Second Amendment, but I can tell you there would be a strong pull for me to say, oh, we need to, what happened with Gabby Giffords and all them, we need to put in restrictions, we need to do this, we need to do that. That tug would be pretty strong. But the yeah, that right there with like you said, I think people get a little bit too carried away with just throwing cliches out there like that about But yeah, when I saw that quote or saw him say it, I was like, oh, I mean, it's even more poignant now that he's dead. But even if he was still alive, I would have been like, oh, Charlie, I would have recrafted that. I know it was in the moment, but anyway, that it is what it is. But one thing that I don't know, Jen, I don't know if it's on the agenda tonight, but Jimmy Kimmel, I hope you talk about that because I've got a few things to say about that too. But anyway, yeah, no, Saint, your point about us sitting down and talking, at least here, like here, having the things like the discussions that we had before and hopefully we'll continue them and everything. And also whenever I'm a little suspicious when the left, this was after Trump won the first time around, and they said, well, we need to sit down and talk. And then I was like, oh, well, that sounds good. And I think it was Sarah, the comedian. What was her? I can't remember her name. But anyway, one of the comedians, she was saying, and then she went on to say, it was almost like, we're not going to have it was, in long story short, we're not going to have a dialogue. I'm going to tell you nicely why you're wrong and I'm right. And I'm like, that's not, if that's what your mindset is going, and then don't bother, but for me, over the past couple of years, I've kind of softened a bit and, and everything like that. Maybe gone to the left just a little bit, but just a little. But so anyway, that's what I got to say about Charlie Kirk. Gone too soon. Is he a martyr? No. Dr. Martin Luther King was a martyr. John F. Kennedy was a martyr. And you maybe even say Robert F. Kennedy, but definitely those two guys right there. Abraham Lincoln was a martyr. And the reason I say Charlie's not a martyr is that I'm kind of like looking 31 years old. Martin Luther King changed the world. Okay. At least here in the United States, he had a profound impact. It's like Gandhi is a martyr. Okay. I mean, when people refer to these people in history that had change across the world, across cultures, across religions, that's when I say you're in my books, like the Hall of Fame. I hate to compare that, but it's kind of like you got to have a real body of work to say that you're a martyr. I think it's unfortunate he got cut down too soon. But anyway, that's all I got to say on that.
Okay, interesting. I think people think, well, as with all other language over time, it morphs into stuff, right? Like the word racism, like you can sneeze or you can say, I don't like Beyonce's hair. You're anti-black, you're racist, right? Now everybody's a Nazi if you tell somebody, I don't think abortion should be legal. You're a Nazi. It's like, so words don't mean what they used to. The word martyr has been thrown around a lot past couple years. George, you spoke about he wasn't a martyr. Do you think that George Floyd was a martyr?
No, no, and it's a shame that guy too. He's a young man to me too. I don't know how old he was, but um, I guess Jim, I see probably where you're going with this. Maybe from different political perspectives or different that he might be to them, but me in the classic sense, I kind of hold to more of the traditional classic sense of martyr, and I would say no. Um, it's kind of like I'm like I want to say to those people, I realize that you call him a martyr. He died um, horrifically, but I'm like, you could go find a better character. I mean, somebody a little bit, a little bit. But anyway, I guess it depends a lot on where you're coming from. But if somebody wants to call him a martyr, okay, I'm not going to get upset about it. You know, so
No, Saint. What do you
Yeah.
think about the word? All the words. Kind of like they being diluted so much. They don't have the sting they used to. Like now, I see people online saying, "Yeah, I am racist." Like, I'm one of those people. It's like, whenever you have an opinion about anything, "Oh, you're right." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm racist." Whatever you say, whatever gets you through the day. And the tables are turning, like I speak often about, and people just, those words don't have the sting that they used to have. Right now, they're like light insults. You're such a Nazi. Women are going to be saying this at their sewing circles and at brunch now. You know what I mean? If Karen, doesn't want to order the appropriate croissant for Julie, and you're such a Nazi girl. What do you think about George Floyd and the word martyr? Do you think he's on the same level as Kirk? Doesn't really deserve the title?
So it's funny because I can make an example. We do that with everything. We overuse things. And where it ends up losing value. So in my world, right, uh, every single play. Oh, that's the first time that a running back's ever run 50 yards with his shoe untied. Everything's like an event. Everything is like bigger than it should be. Like, yeah, where do you get that statistic from? That is ridiculous. So when I bring this over to what happened with George, I think George Floyd and I forgot the little guy's name that went to jail, went to court and got off after he shot those people. He was out there patrolling on one of the riots and he shot a little guy. So they're political pawns, in my opinion. They're somebody to put up. Like, I don't think they're martyrs. No, I mean, one of them got killed, or one of them was killed by a cop. Which is sad, right? People have their opinions about that, whether there was drugs involved or if it was the fentanyl or whatever, in his system. And it could there's a ton of things that could have helped that go along with what happened, right? And then the other guy was looking for trouble and found it and shot some people, but he's put up on a pedestal. Charlie Kirk, it's a lot different because he was out there having dialogues with students that didn't agree with him and talking and maybe changing opinions, and maybe maybe he had some opinions change. Who knows? So no, I definitely do not like the way we put people to be bigger than they are, put statues up. Yeah, you have to really, to me, you have to really be great to have a statue put up. It shouldn't just be because you got killed. So yeah, that's my opinion.
So I think I'm gonna get a statue of me in the living room, since statues. I don't think George Floyd should have got not one but two statues. He has two statues. I thought that was a little ridiculous, but like you said, people are used as political pawns, and I think Charlie Kirk is the quintessential political pawn right now. And just for the record, the exact quote of what he said, that keeps coming up because now he's a victim of gun violence, was he felt some gun deaths are worth it to protect the Second Amendment rights. And the reason why I say it's more probable or possible that he would stand by even his own death, crazy as it sounds, is because, again, you watch him on interviews and he spoke about having security. He spoke about people being after him. He spoke about the threats to him, not only himself but his family. So he very much knew he was in danger. Did he think he was going to get rifled from 200 yards? No, but he very much knew his life was in danger, and he was a very faithful man. And I think he would have stood by it. Nobody wants to, I guess, die, but when you're as faithful as he was, and you're thinking there's a second life and a Jesus and God's gonna embrace you, you know what I mean? When you get there, I think that mentality is different, and I think they look at death differently in general. I do want to go forward with Jimmy Kimmel. You're fired, and then you're hired. But then he wasn't really fired technically. They kind of put him on ice for a while. He did apologize, if you can call it that. He cried, he teared up during the apology. I thought it was nice of him to apologize. You know, people were like, he shouldn't have apologized. And, you know, we just live in that society now, which also proves, sidebar, I don't know why people apologize after they say something incendiary or derogatory to a certain group of people, because people don't want apologies. They want blood. Okay. They're chasing you with the pitchforks, right? And they want blood. So even if you apologize, you're going to have a slew of people in the mob saying, that's not sincere. Look how she twitched her left eye. I know pantomimes. Look how she twisted her lip. That's not a real apology. So to apologize to me is in vain, right? It's futile. But he apologized, and he's in big money. So when you deal with big money, a lot of us commoners don't understand that those people are in different tax brackets and they have to treat business differently, right? Like Jimmy Kimmel not apologizing on air is different from you not apologizing to Junebug after you stole his sneakers. Those are two different things. So sometimes you can, you know what I'm saying, you got to bite the bullet, and sometimes you could like, I'm not going to apologize, I don't care. But, you know, big money, big apologies. Big money, big business. So, you know, a lot of people don't understand why he probably felt the need to apologize or had to apologize. But he's back working. I wouldn't have went back, but maybe he loves his job. But, you know, I think he's worth around $50 million plus whatever businesses he has on his side. So he, you know, he does have fuck you money. But for some reason, you know, he wanted to stay on the show, and he came back and did the apology and teared up. I thought it was sincere, you know, but you look online, but that wasn't sincere. He, you know how the mob is. But what do you guys think about him being put on ice and what he said? I don't think what he said was that bad. I chalked it up as comedy, but we had Jabari up here a couple weeks back, and he said it wasn't comedy. And I was like, okay, I thought, you know, there was comedy within the monologue. But, you know, some people insist it wasn't comedy. It was his staunch point of view of MAGA. You know, I don't take monologues as gospel, but a lot of people got offended. So what do you guys think of Jimmy Kimmel? You're fired and you're hired.
You got to call out our names, Jim.
I said, I'll keep talking.
You have to call out our names, like, go ahead, George, or go ahead, you know, saying, but I'm here now, so I'll go. So this is my whole thing. I remember I watched a little clip from Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan said he was setting up his joke, and it was funny. You know, it was funny, even though it wasn't his opinion, right? I think comics take big risks, and you never know how it's going to go. If you remember, remember what's her name? I can't remember the lady's name, that comedian that had Trump's head, you know, and she got hit pretty bad. This is what I don't like, and I think George would agree with me here. There was a time, and for some of your younger audience members out there, they might not remember it, but even Jay Leno, I don't think really got that political. And Johnny Carson, you didn't know who he voted for, right? So I don't like now that you know what everybody votes for, you know who everybody's for, because it does sow division. Then it's, you know, now I think sometimes people that are on the other side don't see when they make fun of it's not as much, but they don't see when they make fun of the Democrats. Like if Biden's if it's still the president, you know, you go to Saturday Night Live, they're making fun of Biden. You know, it might not be, maybe some people think it's not as sharp, you know, not as pointed or whatever. But I mean, we got to be honest. There's a lot to make fun of with Trump. I mean, it's really easy. But yeah, I just wish, as far as talk shows go, I wish we wouldn't know who they voted for. Even if you know who they voted for, I wish they would kind of go middle of it. But I definitely don't think the government should pressure any network, any university, any newspaper, or anybody that they just don't like because they say something against, you know, their side. I don't think that is a good precedents to set. And I'm glad ABC allowed him to come back. I thought he makes 14 a year. I'm not sure. Maybe you can look that up. So I don't know how much he's worth, but I thought he made like 14 a year. And let's be honest, the ratings for all these shows, I think YouTube and all the other choices, the streaming, I don't think a lot of people watch it as much. And when you alienate, 50% of the population, your ratings are going to go down too. But no, I don't think there's any that he should be fired for it at all. So go ahead, George.
Yeah, no, say, this is where you and I definitely agree here. And one of the things I've listened to what he said. I thought, maybe too soon, Jimmy. And and I think the whole point of his joke was what he said about Trump. It was really when he brought Trump in. One thing that has bothered me after the whole Charlie Kirk thing, incident is all the calls from the right about censorship. And I'm like, hold the fuck on. We spent the better part of my life bitching about how we're censored in the media, we're censored on this, YouTube censors you, still does it, things like that. And then now we're talking about censoring somebody else. I'm like, listen, I'm going to quote this guy. He's a civil rights lawyer, and he's called the civil rights lawyer. But anyhow, he's got this quote. He says, my rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary, deal with it. So, the thing is that, again, we're going to people, before we start reining in speech, and of course everybody knows you don't shout fire in a crowded theater, all that good stuff. But, I'm kind of like, look, I don't care how vile it gets. Not, constant, people who deny the Holocaust, people who get up there, make really absurd kind of claims and stuff. I think those people should be heard. I think that, across the spectrum and, and all that kind of, yeah, will some people be duped by it? Yeah. But, it's kind of like similar to somewhat what Charlie Kirk said. The First Amendment, it's kind of like you got to take the crooked with the straights. And on the First Amendment, there's people out there who really are not qualified to have an opinion, but they still have it and everything. But yeah, no, saying this is something that where for me, I'm like, hit the fucking brakes. This is cause what's going to happen. No, Saint, people get in charge. The left comes back in power. They will, eventually they will. And then you know what? They're going to start censoring people, and then they're going to start doing political, taking people to court. You can argue that they've already done that. But this is kind of stuff that I'm worried that we're going to go down the path of what you see in like South American countries and others where they've had like military dictatorships, like in Argentina, and they had people who they disappeared. A lot of people took them off, things like that. Death squads, things like that, and everything. So we need to really, and I'll speak out about it. I support, kind of like Dave Chappelle. He said there's comedians that he knows are flat out racist, and he says, and even though I disagree with him, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, even though I disagree with them, I fully support their right to say what they want to say. And Jen, I'm going to tell you one thing in comedy I've kind of seen. This is kind of like, I don't know if you agree, but comedy is kind of like, I think it's a leading indicator for culture. And that Leonidas, Joni, and there's some other, you could almost call them right-wing comedians, are coming out. And Jen, they're hitting that race button. They're hitting that race button, religion button. And I'm like, oh no, and I'm kind of like, are you going too far? But at the same time, it's, I hope it doesn't go too far in the other direction, but and everything where we have, blackface, all that kind of stuff from the past. That was pretty sick. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox and hand it back to you.
So it is. I noticed George is getting quite interesting on social media. I was telling Nosing about this not that long ago, where people are now, I've seen everything from saying people should be hung. I've seen people throw bananas in comments. I've seen black people throw tacos in comments and little swimming emojis, calling Latin people wetbacks. I've seen, Latin people go against other Latin people, depending on how they voted. I've seen, countless videos of black people telling Latin people, "I'm going to call ICE on you," and Trump is sending you back. I've seen white people saying usual suspects about black people. So it is getting very interesting, to say the least, on social media. And I'm just wondering how far it's going to go. You mentioned blackface. I think that's around the corner. I'm wondering what, I also told Nosa, I'm wondering what this Halloween is going to bring. I know we're going to see Charlie Kirk costumes in not a good way. We may see blackface. People are giving less and less and less and less fucks, and it's not just trolls and people hiding. A lot of people are saying it with their chest and their face, right? Because you're not going to be able to police billions of people, right? You could take them off social media, they'll come back on, they'll come back on, they'll continue coming back on. You can only really ban the huge public figures, right? You can't ban 5 million people who are just regular folks online. So it is, I would not be surprised to see blackface come back. It's getting really bizarre. Just to say, and we're gonna go lighter as we go on with this stream, but I wanted to touch on really quickly. I'm sure all of us have seen that video now that went viral where the ICE agent slammed this Ecuadorian woman on the ground who was crying about her husband getting snatched by ICE, and she was there with 2 small children. And she was hysterical and trying to get information on where her husband was sent. And the ICE agent, a Latin ICE agent, so we're clear here what we're dealing with, just ran her up on the wall like he was on a football field, ran her up on the wall. She fell to the floor. No one intervened. Everybody looked either stuck on stupid or making sure they're videoing, right? Because everybody needs to get that footage so they can be first, right? So they can drop it first. What did you guys see the video? Chat, did you see the video? Don't forget to like and subscribe, por favore. Buy me a smoothie, Cash App on the Block with Jen. You guys know I don't have the super chat, so you got to support me with the Cash App. Did you guys see it, and what do you feel about it? Just raise your hand who wants to go first so I can mute my shit. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw it. I think I'm cutting people a lot of slack for not reacting or not saying things. We saw on Man on the Street that people were scared to say things. And I think it's the same thing with this agent. If I step in, what are they going to do to me? Where are they going to take me? I mean, we've already heard, the way that, and we haven't heard about this a lot, but the way they were sending people to like third countries, like your favorite president down in Central America's country, and throwing them in jail, and some people probably were not even illegal, and then talking about, oh, maybe we should send American criminals down there, right? So I'm thinking these people aren't reacting because, like, hey, I don't want to get thrown out, or I don't want to get detained and interrogated. I cut them some slack, but oh yeah, that was I think I want to say, I don't know if you told me or someone said that he got fired. They let him go or something. I mean, they had to, but I wonder how many other people he slammed like that. Yeah, that was unnecessary. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know what she was saying. That's another thing. I couldn't understand what was going on 100% until you just said what, I had no idea what it was about. I was like, well, why do you do that? I didn't know what was going on, but you explained it. So anyway, go ahead, George.
I didn't see the video, but I've heard about it. And again, I it's kind of like, I think some of these law enforcement guys in general, I'll start with this. They say sociopaths / psychopaths are roughly 1 to 3% of the population. And I read a study somewhere where in law enforcement and your local police, they tend to be, when they're there, there's a disproportionate number of them in law enforcement. And I'm not, now, anybody out here is a cop, has relatives that are a cop. I'm not calling them sociopaths. Where's your sign? Some, not all, kind of, where's that at? So anyway, is that some of these, by training and common sense, and then some of these people are just, they're like a sociopath or maybe even a psychopath. They get off on this. And so yeah, firing the guy was the least they should have done. That woman definitely has a case for a lawsuit, and I hope she wins. Hope she gets a nice settlement, because it was not right what was done to her. Even though her husband may be here illegally, all that kind of stuff, but still, doing that to her, and then their kid, like you bring up, their kids, Jen, they're watching. We said the same thing about, this is where, saying I gotta be consistent here. If I'm going to say, yeah, well, Charlie Kirk's got killed right there in front of his kids, and they're traumatized. Now think about what these kids with this woman, they were traumatized, and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just it's turned into a shit show over the past 2 years. But I don't know why I'm saying that. It's actually, we predicted this, I think, and we talked about this. But anyway, I'll turn it back over to you, Jen.
Yeah, the children, they're never going to forget that. They're never going to forget seeing their mother slammed to the ground by this strange man. And then speaking their language at that. So I'm sure there was confusion. But no, saying she was basically, just FYI, she was just basically asking where her husband was sent. And she was complaining that when she was outside, she didn't know what was going on. They were pulling her hair. I did hear someone say that it was that same guy who was pulling her hair. There's other footage somewhere. I don't know if they're going to release it or not. But when they were separating her from her husband, that same agent was pulling her hair, like pulling her by her hair off of her husband. So when she was hysterical, she was telling him, someone was pulling my hair. I don't know what was going on. Where did they take him? So I have another side to say about this. People don't like it. What's up, E Black in the building? What's up, baby? Come up if you want. People are not going to like this because they misconstrue what I say, right? I don't like, and I see it happen over and over again, I don't like, it's a bit performative, and I know that having one of your loved ones snatched off the street is traumatic. I said that. It's there, okay? You got the plate and the spoon and the fork? Let me continue. I hate seeing when they act out like that. I don't like it. I think it makes the situation worse. I think they are traumatizing their children. I've been arrested in front of my child, okay? Go figure, me arrested for what, right? But I just think you have to, as an adult, you have to keep your cool around your children, even if you didn't do it, because I ain't do it, y'all. There was a false arrest. But you know, it's like, I don't understand. Even when the men are arrested, they're rolling around on the ground saying, help me, help me, help me. What help are they waiting for? What do they think is going to happen? Do they think people are going to just, run up like the Avengers and say, hey, these guys got guns, okay? They are rogue. They're barbaric. They're savages. A lot of them are psychopaths, like George said. Why are these men rolling around on the ground, screaming, crying, say, help me, help me, help? And I'm just like this. If I'm in a country illegally, I'm going to watch my six all the time. And I promise on everything that's happened. I've been arrested a couple times. Once the authorities with the badges and the guns got the drop on you, they got the drop on you. There's nothing you're going to say. There's nothing you're going to beg your way out of. You can't wrestle them. These guys have guns, badges, and real bad attitudes. And they're just hoping you act up. So I just don't understand the psychology behind people being hysterical. And I wish I was there so I can pull her aside and be like, this is getting you nothing. Now, I will try to interpret for you, but this is getting you nothing, and think about your children because they're watching everything you're doing and they're going to react the way you react. Again, I am not saying that she shouldn't have been upset. I'm not saying that it was fair, because you people, y'all are slow when you listen to me, okay? I'm not saying that it was just. I think he was a fucking animal for what he did. I don't understand how no one intervened. No, saying I get it. Nobody wants to get involved because they don't know what's going to happen. But there was a time where people would just stand in between and be like, hey, everybody calm down. We're not even getting that anymore. People are petrified of repercussions even when they're doing the right thing. And No Saint and I went and we did man on the street. Okay, I'll post those over the weekend. And we were asking people about Charlie Kirk and politics. These people were scared to speak to us. I don't want to. So we made fun of this being a dictatorship, but people are afraid to intervene when people are getting beat on, when men are whooping on women. That hallway was full of people. I swear on everything I know and love, if I was there, I would have stood between them like, what are you doing? And these were men. No one thought to like, hey, little man. That's a little man. He looked about 5'3", 140 pounds with a couple quarters in his pocket. No one thought to, hey, bring it down a little bit. Just nobody thought to do that. But I hate the videos where they are hysterical and they're rolling around on the ground, yelling, help me, help me, help me. If you're here illegally, you know they're coming for you, or there's a possibility. For your sake and for your children's sake, por favor, go and do what you have to do for the sake of the children. Don't traumatize the babies, please. No, Saint.
Yeah, I was gonna say, another thing that's going on. So obviously this video serves no real good. This officer who got caught on video doing this, and of course that's what's going to get on the social media. That's what's going to get on the news. And now we have people going to headquarters where ICE is taking snipe, and I think there was a couple people died the other day in Dallas from a guy shooting shooting at ICE and had stuff engraved in the bullets again. And then there was another one right after that where somebody showed up at the so all this social media playing these things, and these guys are just going and enforcing what they're told to do. That it's like anybody else's job. If your boss says you got to do this, this is what, and it's legal, right? I'm not saying you have to go and rob a bank, but you got to do it, or you're going to lose your job. Everybody's got a job to do, and maybe this person doesn't even agree with what's going on, but that's his job, And so, but I don't like everybody keeps saying every time something happens, we need to turn the heat down. But then we have, the media showing incendiary videos of things, making it seem like it's everybody. And we talked about this when they showed the TikTokers celebrating. Horrible, but that's not the whole country. It's not the whole people, everybody on the left. It's mostly students, it looked like to me. There was some doctors and there was some people that were in high positions. I think they got fired. So there were those people, but that still doesn't count for everybody. I don't know anybody personally that celebrated it, that was like, I'm glad they got that guy, but yeah, I just think that, this guy that pushes this woman, he did everybody. He's gone now, but he did everybody in that every ICE agent a disservice because it's making people angry.
Yeah, and if somebody caught him somewhere, you know what I mean, it'd be a good day. That was despicable. It was absolutely despicable and unnecessary. George?
Yeah, for the younger folks out there was an incident in the early 90s. There was a guy named Rodney King. Can we all get along? And the cops who beat him senseless on the side of the road out there, they did more damage to law enforcement, O.J. Simpson trial, Mark Furman, the racial comments, tampering with evidence. O.J. Simpson was guilty as hell, but you know what? Mark Furman helped free him, And so things like that, I agree with you, Saint. It's just like the police and law enforcement, they need to be pretty aggressive about policing their own. And really, especially when you're put in positions, you have the right, ICE agents, have the authority to arrest you, and if need be, they can use deadly force on you. If it goes that far, if they, and so the standards for them have to be way higher. And when things like this happen, they've got to come down like a ton of bricks and get them out of there, and then send the message, hey, we're not going to put up with this shit. So, but yeah, at the same time, but then then there's the other thing: support them when these dudes point a gun at them and they cap them right there. So and then the whole thing that happens after that. But yeah, and you're right, No Sync. We're doing a lot more agreeing tonight than arguing. So anyway, we got to find something. Anyway, we all say this. We need to turn down the temperature. But somebody pointed this out. Jen, you've also said it a gazillion times. We know what gets clicks. We know what gets likes. We know what gets views. Negative, going in other words, if some chasing clout, where did that come from? Jen, like George Cook trying to raise his awareness online. I go after a bigger opponent, and I start talking shit about it. And so, that kind of thing, instead of doing it on your own, by your own content and the quality, you're and like they said, don't hate the player, hate the game. But that's literally true. It's the game in politics and stuff like that. And I think as a society and our morals, we've got to demand better of ourselves and everybody around. And then, like I said, if you keep electing, I don't care if it's on the left or right, you keep electing these like Matt Gaetz, people like him. That guy was like you want to talk about a sociopath, or that dude, every time he talks, I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit here, but he was always like a like a robot when he talked. I mean, like no soul, no whatever. I was like, man, you give me the chills. But anyway, but yeah, I think as us going to a higher level in society, our consciousness and everything, that we need to start with our children and just elevating. We got to elevate our game, to just put it mildly. So anyway.
Okay, guys. So, I need some white on white crime up here. You guys are getting along famously with what's going on. I never thought I'd be more leaning to the right than the white guys on the panel. What's going on? What a difference some time makes.
Well, I was gonna say, I think it's also a fact that I'm close. A lot of things have changed me. Like, I'm closer to the center now than I was maybe a few years ago, and that's a good thing, because that means you listen to people's opinions, other people's experiences, and you're like, okay, maybe I am going overboard on this point, so, and George went a little to the left. So, there we are.
And I went a little to the right. I went a little to the right.
We're all converging on the center.
George, going back to what you said, we should expect more of ourselves. We should police our own. Unfortunately, the mob is the mob, right? So all three of us here can agree that, the ICE agent was out of line. It was despicable. And then you go on social media like I did today, and I'm seeing men, women, all kinds of people saying, well, I saw one person say she was attacking him. I saw a woman say, well, she was jumping all over him, like justifying this. And these people are, hundreds on different platforms. Remember, we're all independent contractors here with our platforms. So you have hundreds of people, on all kinds of platforms saying this stuff. So it's like, and there's, even though No Saint, you're saying, well, we don't know anybody personally, is because we don't surround ourselves with animals like that. We don't surround ourselves with people that think like that. But they are out there. Like, that montage was the montage with people making fun of Charlie Kirk's death. And now we're seeing people saying that, she deserved it. She should have, not touched him or whatever. But that guy needs to be investigated far beyond that push, because that was real. And this is on camera, right? He knew there were cameras there, right? So I can't even imagine what that man is like behind closed doors. And he got the Napoleon thing going. Ooh, wee, baby. I wanted to move forward. I wanted to talk a little bit about Maurice. Let me get his name. Hold on now. Let me throw up the banner so we're all on the same page. Okay, guys, so Maurice Hastings is 72 years old now. He did 38 years in prison. Ouch. 38 years in prison, falsely accused of a sexual assault, exonerated, freed, and he just won 25 million for a wrongful conviction. My question is, because I saw some people saying it online, but I call cap. They were saying that 38 million is worth it. If they were out right now of prison and they did 38 years, they'd be up, as they say. They'd be up now anyway than they would be in their regular life. So what do you guys think? And this is 25 million before attorney's fees and taxes and all of that. What do you think? No, saying 38 years, yeah. 25 mil? No.
No, I wouldn't take that. And it would depend. Listen, I would never want to go to jail. So I doubt I would even if it was offered, you go to jail, you take 25, 35 years and you go to jail. But if it was at 20, but this guy's already 70 something years old now. If he's thinking about maybe his kid, maybe he's got kids or people that he's thinking about that is, I can give this when I die. Maybe that's something. I don't even know what the guy thinks, to be honest. But I think people that say that are young. I think they're young. They think, and then again, and you spend 35 years in prison now, that 25 million is going to be more like 2 million the way the money's going. So it's not going to be worth that much. Of course, if they probably get a bigger settlement, but no, it is definitely to me not worth it.
So, Jen, is the question really you would do 38 years in jail just to get 25 million? Is that, how stupid of a question is that? I mean, people are actually doing, no, I'm with y'all. Okay. I'm with y'all. That's like, George, we'll give you $50 million if we cut off your nuts. Do you want to do that? Just how you're right. You're right. No, Saint, young and dumb. That's what that is. I thought that at first when I read the question that people were saying he didn't deserve 25 million. I'm more like he only got 25 million. I mean, this was a pretty big deal. This man, yeah. So anyway, I bet he would even say to you that there's no way he would do 38 years just to get 25 million. But anyway, that's what I got to say about that.
Woo, 38 years. That is a lifetime for some people. Some people don't even live to be 38. Absolutely despicable. 25 million, like you said, in the economy after lawyers' fees and taxes and the family with the handout, him getting acclimated back into society, and the money's gonna go, right? Unless he's a super investor at 72 years old. I mean, the man is 72. Yeah, he got 25 mil. I don't know how much it's gonna be after he has to pay everybody off, but 72 is 72. He's not gonna be able to enjoy this money like if he was 27. There's only but so much his body's gonna allow him to do at 72 years old. I mean, I guess he'll live comfortably for whatever his lifespan, allows, and then he'll leave whatever's left over to his family. But 72 years old, 38 years. I mean, the number is stomach churning. 38 years. I mean, a weekend. If a weekend, in jail is horrible. It's horrible. I 38 years I can't even, but something you didn't do, I can't even fathom. Can you imagine year after year and you know you didn't do it? Year after year, sun up, sun down, deaths, births, parties, holidays, and you're stuck in there for something you didn't do. I'm surprised he didn't put a sheet around his neck. You know, it's crazy. Yeah, it's just horrific. Okay, guys, so viewer's choice. So I'm gonna get into this Cardi B thing. Anybody want to talk about anything else? Anybody in the chat?
Yeah, I want to say this. And I forgot to say it when we were talking about Charlie Kirk, and Jen alerted me to this. George, I think we this society, the way with social media, the way everything's instant. People don't take that, and people are lazy. People are lazy. They don't go and look for anything for themselves. They don't say, well, that doesn't sound right. Let me go. That doesn't seem logical. Let me go look into it. No, they take other people's stories and run with it. Well, now we have Jen talked about, there was a AI video where there was a white woman walking in to get a coffee at a Starbucks, and the black woman was serving, and the white woman said, give me the Charlie Kirk. And then the black woman said, oh, okay. And she made it, and then it like exploded, like, from the side or whatever. And then all the coffee's coming out. Okay. That's pretty easy to spot that that's AI, but people are going to, we don't know if the Russians sent that. We don't know if the Chinese sent, because a lot of that goes on too, where they're trying to infiltrate, because that is our weakness. Our weakness is division. Oh, am I back? Am I back? Okay. All right. Somebody just called. Sorry. Um, so there are going to be really sophisticated AI videos that people aren't going to be able to tell if they're real or fake, and they're going to be able to manipulate things so easy. So right now they're manipulating people to go out and kill people, and I don't know how we get a hold of it unless it's tough. I don't know how you get a hold of that unless you get a hold of social media and start putting some restrictions on it. But then you're talking about freedom of speech. I don't know. Go ahead, George.
Okay. Yeah, no, Saint, you're totally right. I had he's a good friend of mine, but for a while this guy got, believe it or not, he was believing these flat Earth people. I had to walk him through logically about the Earth. I said, well, what about when the eclipse happens and these things happen? Yeah, you're right. But he would just read like the headline of somebody's video or whatever, or just hear the first few minutes of it. I said, think about this. Think, and but going to AI, for you young chillins out there, go watch a movie called Running Man from 1987. And in this movie, you will be how far ahead they were thinking. In the movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger gets accused of doing something he didn't do. They spliced in his voice, they captured his voice, and AI, they ran a video. You may remember it, may vaguely remember it, but it sounded just like him telling, it was like to open fire on like a crowd of people or something like that. And so that technology exists right now today. And so you're right, No Saint, with people not wanting to do research and think critically, we are primed to be really fooled. And it's only getting better. It's only getting better. So, yeah. AI, in a way, I kind of like it because I'm a tech guy, but at the same time, I also understand there's a dark side to it, too.
Yeah, Irby says lots of movies predicted the future. Absolutely. That's like what was the Stallone movie where they were having sex virtually? I forgot the name of that movie. I think it starts with a D. But he was like having sex with somebody else.
I don't know if no, there's so many Stallone movies. I was gonna say Judge Dredd, but I don't know if it was that or not.
I don't know if it was Demolition Man. I don't know. It was one of those. But yeah, we are here. We are in the future. And it's so funny when now people are not being able to tell the difference. Once they get those hands right, once AI gets those hands right, because they always get the hands wrong. But once they get those hands right, let me tell you, you see people in the comments now is that when you see accidents or, sinkholes or earthquake, people like, is that real? Is this AI? You see it in the comments. People can't tell. I have my friends send me reels and I'm like, it's AI. And they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, it's AI. You can tell by the way the person, flew through the windshield. It's AI. But and if the Chinese and the Russians are, infiltrating, it's going to get worse and worse and worse because collectively, I'm sorry, this country is dumb. Collectively, America, I'm sorry, is dumb. Like very easily swayed, very easily convinced. You could throw out some AI, you could throw out one lie. People don't read. Forget people clicking on an article to read. They don't even go past the headline. They'll see two names on the headline and be like, see, I told you. And I'm like, did you read the entire, now we don't even read the whole headline? I mean, I know we don't read the articles. I know we don't play the videos all the way, but now you're not even reading the entire headline. Like this country suffers from, before it was, oh, you have no reading comprehension. Forget reading comprehension. You have no audio and visual comprehension. What they had on a purple shirt, the shirt was blue, ma'am. What is going on with Americans? And I think it's getting worse and worse and worse. These machines are retarding the brains. But, we've been talking about that for years. I don't know where it's going to end up. A lot of us older folks are always saying like, we got to do better. We got to do better. We got to teach the youngins. I think it's a runaway train. I think the future is bleak. I think the people that get it are always going to get it. And then the people that don't are massive and they're never gonna get it. No saying, I told you there's a sub human race for a lot of ethnicities, and it's like that's just their culture and that's how they're gonna be, and it's never gonna change. Yes, I said the rise of art. Okay, so I want to end on a brighter note. I'm not gonna do Cardi B. I don't think that's the vibe tonight. But I did see an article that said studies have shown that men find a woman way less attractive the smarter and more successful she is. Studies have shown that men find a woman way less attractive the smarter and more successful she is. I have men in the chat. I have men on the panel. What say thee, no saint? Do you find them less attractive? Be honest. If so, why?
And this happens to me a lot. I'm a very different person. I guess the things I like are different and strange and weird. I'm attracted to a beautiful, intelligent woman, and maybe they're not as beautiful, but some of them don't have to be beautiful. If they're intelligent and successful, it's attractive to me. So I don't know. I as usual, I'm going against the norm, I guess, but that's just the way I am. Go ahead, George.
For me, I like intelligent women. The only thing where the success part may come in for me is if she's using it like an Uno card. It's a competition. Well, I'm worth 20 million. What are you worth? And then it's like, you remember these speed dating? Remember that was popular? I went to one of them and I'm sitting in front of this woman and she says, well, I have an MBA. Well, I have an MBA. And I was like, okay, great. That it's like, as a general thing for men, we're not so much impressed by your college degrees or whatever. I'm like, no, Sam, I want them to be intelligent and great if they got a degree and all that kind of stuff. But it's more or less when I think when women are overcompensating and they're using like their career and stuff like that, it's almost like I want to say, congratulations, you've become the man that you want to marry. So it's like, but so attractiveness for me, it's kind of like, I'm not really bothered by the intelligence thing. It's only when on the success, what they define as success to them. It's like, usually it's like education and the job and all that kind of stuff. That's the only thing that turns me off, is when they kind of want to make it like a competition or whatever. But I will say this on like success for women and success. I will say this, and is that the more successful a woman is, the harder it will be for her to find a man that will match her or suit her, because whether you like it or not, hypergamy is a real thing. Women want dudes who are at least on the income level, at their level or higher, and which I totally understand and agree with. So it's kind of like, as you think about it, who's the lady, Shakira? She's worth like 400 million or whatever. Remember when she made that comment to her boyfriend and about basically kind of like said to on the interview that she basically ran the show and the relationship and all that, and he was kind of like, oh, he didn't like that. Then he fooled around with her. Remember that whole thing? And I thought about it. She's at her income level. It's like she has to date down, and so any dude, it's kind of like if they're at that level. I know I'm kind of going a little bit beyond what you're talking about here, Jim, but is that I would say to women is like, look, if you're really, really successful, um, you kind of need you're going to have to lower, quote unquote, lower your standards a little bit, because the majority of the men you're going to find out there ain't going to be able to match it, so anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Well, when we look at, Rihanna, she's a billionaire. She didn't end up with a billionaire. She ended up with a guy, I think that was worth $4 million. You guys could correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I think ASAP Rocky was worth about 4 million in comparison to her billion. You have Nicki Minaj, who's she's in 9 figures. She went and got herself some poo putt from Queens, New York, who didn't have a job. You got, who else is it? I think when you're at that in that bracket, you're in boy toy bracket now, where it's like, get you a little something, you know what I mean, to take the edge off in between your work. But it's gonna be hard to find a man, and even if you do find a man in that bracket, right, he's going to want, don't kill me, femininity and submission, right? Which is why I think Shakira's man cheated, because he cheated with somebody that wasn't even worth that. And the reply is usually like, yeah, she's not even worth what I'm worth, or she doesn't have what I have. That's the whole point. That's why he went there. That's why he went, right? Because men are gonna always, and I said this before, and I'll say it again. It doesn't, because women will say, well, you're broke, you're broke. It doesn't matter if a man works at McDonald's. When he comes home, he wants a woman that's soft and feminine and submissive. And I don't think submissive is a 4-letter word or a bad word, right? But I'm just saying he's gonna want something that's soft. It's just the nature of things. There's no I say the same thing about men. Women are always gonna want protector, provider, provision. It's just the nature of us, and then we're reared and conditioned to think that that's how the gender roles are supposed to be. So I completely get it. I completely get a man needing, you know what I mean? Women, you gotta, you know what I'm saying? And I think when a woman is powerful, it's hard for her to lose that edge. And like you said, George, it's always going to be that card she plays at the slightest inconvenience. Like, wait a minute, I'm such and such, and I'm worth such and such. So watch your, you know what I mean? You're delegating all day. You're powerful. You're rich. So I get it. I'm not saying it was right. I understand why he did it, and people are dumb if they don't understand why he did it. Lots of men do that. Men are gonna go where they feel like men, right? Mas macho. And if you coming home to a billionaire, she better really, really be able to give you that femininity. Like, again, look at Rihanna, look at, Jennifer Lopez has ended up paying 13, 14 million to a man that she married because he was a background dancer. So you're always going to be the head of household when you're in that bracket. It's strange. And it's strange these women keep getting married. I wouldn't do it. Boy toy all day. Not I. All right, guys, with that said, that was the end. We didn't get to the Cardi B, but I'll probably come back and do Cardi B maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I'll make it fun. George, amazing to see you again. Glad you are good. We did miss you. I was worried when you didn't answer that first email. I was like, where's George? No Saint, thank you as always. If you've watched this far, guys, No Saint and I did Man on the Street on the Las Vegas streets. Okay, and we asked people about Charlie Kirk and gender issues and relationships, and I'm dropping some of those tomorrow. I'm gonna start tomorrow dropping those on YouTube and also on Instagram. So look out for that. I'm going to New York 3rd week of October. I will be interviewing my attorney who is on Diddy's defense team. So after Diddy's sentencing, October 3rd, I will be in New York 3rd week of October, and I will be chopping it up with my attorney and try to get all the juicy bits of the stuff we didn't see during the trial. Maybe he'll spill some tea, because it's going to be over and Diddy will be sentenced by then. So stay tuned for that. Follow me on Follow Jen Garcia. If you liked what you heard tonight, get me a smoothie. Cash App on the Block with Jen floating on the bottom. Okay, gentlemen, any last words about anything we spoke about tonight? If not, take your asses to bed.
Well, what I'll say is it was a very peaceful show. No shots were fired, which which shows you that George and I are. This is what we need in this country. We need people to listen, and if you're wrong in certain areas, and that's what I think. I think people like doubling down, like when they find new information and it's against what they already believe, then they're still not gonna go with it because, especially in beliefs, because they feel like they've been fooled, and that's more embarrassing than just admitting that you're wrong. But George and I, we might have crossed a bridge. We'll see what the next few weeks bring when he's up here. But I need to definitely get in touch with him, email or something, or telephone.
Yeah, no, saying I'll drop you a line. I'll give you my number and we can talk. But yeah, sports, Jen, I don't know if you and No Say covered it. I'd love to talk about Shannon Sharp and the situation around him. I'm like, oh my God, what a train wreck, for a guy and everything. Anyway, I can go on and on. But yeah, Jen, I really enjoyed it. Great conversation tonight. Yeah, I know if we go back to talking about atheism versus Christianity again, that'll if we want to get the flames going, yeah, that'll be a good one. Those are, yes, exactly. But yeah, I love seeing you two tonight. It was way too long, Jen. You'll have to give me the backstory about, for your sabbatical and all that. But anyway, yeah, no, saying I'll drop it here. In fact, I'll do that before we get off. But so Jen can have some closing comments. I'll give you my number. But anyway, thank you so much, Jen, for having me. No Saint, really enjoyed talking to you, man.
Okay, guys, you know the drill. The likes help me, the subscribes help me, the sharing helps me. Tell a friend about us. My panel is always open if you cam up, okay? I don't do avatars anymore. It's just, I don't like it. I need to see your face when you talking shit, okay? Again, follow Jen Garcia on Instagram. And stay tuned for our Man on the Street and my interview with my attorney. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Thank you for the support in any way that you do. And we will see you every Friday. Now, don't be surprised if I'm here tomorrow to gossip like about fun shit and celebrities and stuff. We could talk about Shannon Sharp again. We could talk about Cardi B's whole mess. She got a whole lot of drama going on. But, we can touch on her life regarding relationships and what she did with her relationship. That's pretty interesting, which she's getting a lot of criticism for during her divorce. We can get into that. We can get into gender shit. I may do that tomorrow. If I do that, look out for my post on YouTube and also on my Instagram, and I'll let you know if we're coming back, talk about some fun, crazy shit. Maybe we'll hang out tomorrow night after I run around doing my errands. But thank you guys so much. Have an amazing night. Thank you for joining me. Bye.